All right, welcome to the Somewhat Creative Show, the podcast where we explore the ideas, tools, and stories shaping the creative world. I'm Rocky Tilney, here with my trusty co-host, Clark Miller,
Hola.
and today we're talking about the role of video in today's creative world, why it's more than just content, how AI is reshaping production almost overnight, thank you Google Flow, and what separates a quick clip from a compelling story. And speaking of video, later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Max Fancher, founder of MVP Good People, a full-service video production agency based in Oakland, California. And he's going to discuss the future of video production. Well, Clark, let's dive in.
Let's do it. So wait,
How you
is the
doing?
Google, what is the, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Is the Google called Flow? I thought it was VO or VIO or VO or something.
VO
What's the
3 is their model,
Yeah.
but they're branding the product as Flow. Not to be confused with the Progressive Insurance Flow.
Yeah. Flow is not what I would have branded their
Well, it
video
does have a
model as.
W at the end. It's not just flow, like, hey,
Yeah, but
flow.
I could see a lot of like issues with people making fun of it and doing a lot of like bad, menstruation jokes. Like
Oof.
that's a heavy flow today.
I wouldn't have put that together, but
Just saying.
I knew your mind would.
My mind always goes to the worst case. That's
Yeah.
that's
Well,
every time I brand anything, I'm
you're
like, what is a 4-year-old gonna do
Yeah.
in the what is a
You have the
6-year-old in
branding
the
mindset for sure.
how's that gonna play on the playground? That's my thinking.
I don't know. Have you seen some of the stuff that's been generated from
Can't
it?
get away from it. It's insane. I mean, the leap that we've taken in the past, year, like 6 months, like the quality and the consistency and like the fingers not drifting in and out of people's faces and
Incredible.
yeah,
The rate of the visual modeling is incredible.
Yeah.
You almost can't keep up with it.
No.
I've tried to keep up. I've tried working in a couple models just this last week before they announced Flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to prompt, I'm trying to get things right. I'm trying to learn the process and how to actually create content. And then Flow comes out and I'm like, well, crap, this is like, okay, it's another completely different way to do it. And it's like everything you learn like the previous week, you have to kind of unlearn because there's something new.
True.
There's a new feature that these AI platforms release where, you don't have to do it that way. It's sort of like when Midjourney went from being only in Discord to now being, they created the web app version of it, so you didn't need to know all the prompt jargon and all that, and you could kind of just do it more visually.
I know. I learned all this like crazy,
dash
AR,
dash,
what all this weighting, different prompts and words differently in your prompt, and like now it's it's all, I don't even use Discord for it anymore.
Yeah, waiting.
Which I've also been like, not to take us off of the Google video conversation, but Midjourney has Google's image generator has surpassed Midjourney to me.
The Gemini?
Yeah. They have I don't know if it's called Gemini. I think it's like just Image Effects Lab or something. It's the part of the Google Labs. It's, still in testing mode or whatever. So it's not like a fully fledged product. But man, it is the consistency and everything. I can see why their video work has come so far, because their generation is I think it's outperforming what I see on Midjourney and a lot of the other ones right now.
I've been having definitely struggles with Midjourney recently to try to get what I want.
I think the latest version is not working.
V7.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I've been impressed with is ChatGPT's image generation and consistency. Now, they don't have quite the level of granularity that Midjourney has. At least they don't have an interface for it. I don't know if there's prompt tricks to do that. But I've been able just to get a lot more consistency from generation to generation. And when it starts to deviate, it's really easy to get back on track with the source image.
To your point, it's like the controls. Sometimes I'll, be working on an image in Chat GPT, and it'll start just like giving me a different aspect ratio. Like it'll switch it up, and I'm like, wait, whoa. What happened to the aspect ratio I asked for?
Yeah,
And it goes,
it's done
oh,
well.
sorry about that. Let me get back to that.
It's like for no reason.
Yeah,
I said exactly like the other image, and then it does it in landscape, and you're like,
I
that was
know.
portrait. Like, why? And they
Yeah, I
just
don't get it.
completely changed the.
I don't get it.
Anyway, um,
Well,
it's really difficult, I find, to, and I apologize like every episode that we get too involved into AI, but I'm gonna stop apologizing. I think
I know.
there's no way to get around it.
It's
Like,
the
there's no way
biggest.
not to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how we
Because
do a show about creativity without touching on it, which is I think our goal was to do episodes where we just like, they're more focused on different aspects, and AI is just one aspect to creativity and graphic design and all this stuff, but it's hard to avoid it. It's just it's completely overshadowing I think anything else in the world right now for this industry.
so I think things are going to be cheaper to produce. High quality content now is going to be cheaper to produce. So where does this leave us with? If the production aspect's covered,
Yeah.
it's the narrative aspect that has to be unique,
Mhm.
right? Because if
Mhm.
you could do a full action sequence that looks cinematic,
Yep.
at least on a small screen, if you throw it up on a theater, I'm not sure what we're going to see, but it'd be just curious to see like how the segmentation of the traditional production roles are going to be used or
Yeah.
utilized in AI. Like if you could do production, lighting, camera, angles, set design, if you could do all
Mhm.
that in AI, it's just kind of crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, it really gets to this idea of like story being the only true power we have as creatives, and coming up with an original way to tell a story, because AI can do everything that we've ever done. So how do you use it, but in a new way? I think a great example that's
Hmm.
the thing I found somewhat creative out there lately has been the ad campaign for the Slate truck, that everybody's
Well, yeah,
been seeing.
that
I don't know if
thing
we've talked
is
about this
really
on the show,
interesting.
but
We haven't.
their launch campaign and the videos that went accompanied it were the freshest storytelling of any car brand right
Hmm.
now, and maybe in the past 30 years. Maybe since like Toyota trucks had those shots of that were like a viral video shot of the truck falling off the cliff. I don't remember
Hmm.
those, and it would like land on its wheels and it was fine.
Hmm.
It was clearly, CGI at the time, but the Slate, you know, video launch was impressive. They did those series of kind of documentary style setups where it was like the one I'm thinking of. He was
Hmm.
a taxidermist, but for people. So have
Hmm.
your loved ones taxidermied, and the intro and everything is just talking to this guy, and he's telling you about his taxidermy business, and he just so happens to drive this branded taxidermy truck in his logo and everything, and it's the Slate truck, and that's how
Right.
and they drove those around LA, and it went viral, and people were like, is that a real business, and what is this car, and all that. But it was just such a fresh, and it's something that, like, how would you have made that? Like, if AI can make that, you still
Hmm.
have to, like, that's still a very original thinking that somebody had to come up with. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where some exec says, hey, AI, come up with like a really creative ad campaign that's outside of the box. I don't know, maybe, but it still seems like that's the true superpower of creatives,
Well,
is somebody had to
you
think of
bring up
that.
a good point. I mean, obviously that the truck branding and marketing for the Slate was super interesting. The product itself is super interesting. If people
Hmm.
haven't seen it, take a look at it. It's basically it's bare bones.
Yeah,
It's
it's a Lego set.
plastic. There's no paint. It's all one color molded, and you wrap
Hmm.
it in the color you want.
And all
So
the
from like a
accessories, and
yeah, from
yeah.
this whole notion of customization, they really leaned into it, sort of like Mini does with their vehicles. But
Hmm.
you're talking about I can't remember the price point. I think it was like
20,
20 or
19.
25K for it's a rear wheel drive vehicle.
Hmm.
Um, which is a bummer because it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to go to Tahoe.
I mean, it's a smart way to start, though.
I think it's a smart way to
As
start
the
too. Yeah.
lowest price point, and work your way up. Release a new version, get people interested first.
But speaking of
Go where your competitors
advertising,
aren't.
I've been thinking about this a lot too. Is there is there room in this world now for huge agencies, ad agencies with all of the layers that go within an agency, are we going to see that model sort of change into smaller studios and things like that?
Well, I think if it does stick around, that's going to take the form of I think it's BBDO that does this. They kind of create within their organization little mini teams that
Hmm.
act as their own agencies. Basically, it's like that's I think that's the company that's doing it, but I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But I think that's the model for these larger agencies is segmentation and like creating teams that are like little mini agencies within the organization that act kind of independent of one another. And one of them maybe is working on Slate's branding, and you have another team that's working on a different industry. And so more specializing rather than just like, we'll take any, I think it's getting more niche. So I think the more niche agencies like that are specializing in one industry and only doing like the social media video of that, it's like
Right.
breaking it up that much.
Yeah.
But I think you can still do that within a large agency. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go away, but they're probably going to go more in that direction.
Yeah, I get the sense that clients are going to want more nimble agencies
Mm-hmm.
going forward. So we will see. That's going to be an interesting development.
Well, let's talk about video. Since our guest today is a mastermind of video, I think, we haven't really touched on how important video is and how it's really taken over advertising and marketing, and you really can't have a online presence without some form of video nowadays.
Hmm.
It seems like it's so crucial. You have a great question in our show notes that's is there any business that would be better off not using video or shouldn't be using video at this point? And I don't know. I honestly, I've been thinking about it, and I really can't think of any business where it wouldn't help,
Yeah.
at the very
Well,
least.
even 10 years ago, you could have posed the same question.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer probably would have been like, I can't think of any business that should not be using video. I think the problem was the reason, businesses didn't all use video in their marketing is cost. Clearly, that's going to change. That whole equation of cost to produce video will change. It
Mm-hmm.
already has changed. Um, so there's, I think, going to be a demand for more creative content. The At least at this point, I haven't used Google's new tool yet, new Flow.
Yeah.
Um, but the tools right now are not really for novices still. You still have to understand production, creativity, storytelling to
And a
get
fairly high
the
price
results.
point, for most of
And
them.
yeah, they're not cheap. I mean, you have to pay for you have to pay for credits
Mm-hmm.
and certain models to, have more GPU cycles to run to produce the content. The costs do add up, so you know, it's not anywhere near like doing a full scale production. You're talking about a fraction of the cost, but you still need to know how to do it.
True. I'm thinking of like the smaller businesses that are still kind of on a shoestring and
Right.
maybe can't devote the time and like I think still hiring out. I think there's going to be room for agencies that specialize in using these AI video tools and like come to us with your small budget and we'll do something really professional.
Yeah.
I guess one area I feel like, and I kind of almost put my company I currently am with into that camp of like, shouldn't be doing video, is that idea of like, you should only do it if it's going to look really good. If you're, especially if you're at a higher price point, which the information is a
Hmm.
fairly high price point as far as media and news
Right.
sources go.
Right.
And I think, if you're not going to spend the money and have really good quality video, then stay away from it is probably what I would say.
Well, social media in a way sort of democratized the use of video and marketing for small and
Yeah.
medium businesses and also all the way up to enterprise. It's accessible. The platform for publishing is accessible and free in most
Mm-hmm.
cases. And the content doesn't have to be the highest quality for it to be effective. We've seen that as
True.
well. It could
True.
be average quality, even poor quality things get shared.
Yeah.
But the
But
phone in your pocket too gives you that
it
pretty
does.
high quality camera for
But I think
production.
if your business model is such that your marketing face to the world is we are the luxury brand, we are
Hmm.
the high end. I think, you can do low end quality viral video kind of stuff online, and
Right.
it'll work. It's just, is it aligned with your kind of brand principles and
Hmm.
the
Oh,
vision
for
you want to
sure.
project of your brand as a luxury product if you're going low end with your video. I don't know. I think that's the one area where I would second guess if somebody's got an idea to do video that's, yeah, sure, maybe it gets a lot of hits and like gets the name out there
Hmm.
and it'll work, but long term, is that the projection of your company? I think there's you know I was surprised doing an article a couple years ago, and we were talking about social media and how there are a lot of these companies, that just are on social media and like they don't do anything interesting, and they just put like, and all of the banks just randomly, like none of the banks have a big social media presence. You look at like,
Hmm.
at least this was the case a couple years ago, that they a lot of them are dark on social,
Mm.
and they do not produce stuff for it, and they don't market on it. And it's interesting in this day and age to see that, like a large company not having a social media presence. and
Right.
and I think that's an area where it's like, even if a bank could do something well, like, is it good for their business to be in the same conversation as like a influencer, or as like, do I think, are they trying to project kind of this, like, we are the institution, we are the professionals, like, you can
Yeah.
trust us with your money,
Yeah.
we're not going to do something stupid? Is that aligned with going out there and shooting something on a phone and doing something,
Yeah.
entertaining?
Probably not. And I think it comes down to brand authenticity. Let's say a Wells Fargo or a B of A did content, social media content. Obviously, that has to align with their kind of whole brand
Hmm.
guideline, um, and their whatever national campaigns they're doing. I don't think they're going to go off and run these tangent campaigns on social media if they don't align with their broader messaging and advertising plan.
Hmm.
And then, obviously quality matters for brands. You mentioned high end, like luxury brands earlier, like car brands or, Louis Vuitton,
Hmm.
Chanel, Gucci. Like they're probably not going to do content that's kind of below a certain quality standard either. And so I think there are brands that could get away with it, more consumer brands, obviously, content that's maybe produced fan content, you could call it,
Yeah.
um, that you can get away with. But
Yeah. And the partnerships with influencers, and,
and even
it,
AI, like, is it authentic for a brand to use AI video or
yeah.
AI imagery in their so not even just social media, but any type of campaign?
Although, are we at the point where anyone could know? Is anyone going to notice that it's
Well,
AI, or?
that is the interesting aspect of this whole thing. And I think when we get to the point where you can't tell the difference, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Because the consumer probably doesn't really care or
Well,
investigate that.
and this is true already in like when we went from practical effects to CGI effects in film,
Hmm.
right? Can you tell a difference? Um, Sometimes no. Like how
Yeah.
many car flips and explosions that we thought were real? It's like that was all CG.
Hmm.
Um, and does
But
it
look
make
at
the
the
experience
success.
worse? Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
but I mean, it also, the fun thing, and again, this goes back to the like human storytelling and the creativity of certain people. Is like, you look at a movie like Fall Guy that came out a couple of
Hmm.
years ago
Yeah.
with one of the Ryan Gosling, right? And it really, stood on this idea of like real special effects, real stunt people, not a lot of CGI, or like, just enhancements to stunts that they were doing in real life, and how well that worked as a marketing position, and how well that movie like leaned into this idea of like, honoring these stunt people, and we did it all. And the same could be true of all the Mission Impossible movies, right? It's like,
Right. Right.
yes, they have the budget and the, you know, the ability to do a lot of CGI, and they choose not to because mostly I think it's because you can use that as marketing. You can say like, look at this crazy stunt that we actually did, and you know, here's the behind the scenes footage, and it's a great way to promote something. And I think that's going to be true of AI video versus, you know, not like what do we call it now? A traditional video,
Hmm.
um, even traditional CGI versus AI CGI. It's like I think that's going to be your positioning in the market is you're the ones not doing it the same way as the other companies that are using it this way. And yeah, you can't tell the difference, but we can tell you about how we, you know, the difference that we valued from doing it this way versus that way.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
maybe the road that it'll take. I don't
One
know.
quick comment before we bring Max in. People that are Star Wars purists
Mm,
hated the new CG effects that they added to the original
I hated it.
trilogy. So what does that tell you?
I hated
Practical
it.
effects in a nostalgic sense kind of
I
ruled the
saw
day.
I saw a YouTube video once where it was like somebody pretending to be George Lucas and having that conversation of adding them, and they said, well, you know, we're at the pinnacle. Like, no, the CGI will never get better. This will be the best we can do, so we better put it in there now. You know, it's just the ridiculousness of like taking something old and adding more to it. It's like what I can't imagine, you know, a painter after their paintings hung on a wall in a museum and been worshipped by people and loved by people, taking it down and being like, you know what? I've gotten better. I'm gonna add a little bit more to that Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
I think she needs a friend.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't
Can't
make
imagine.
sense.
Yeah, can't
Yeah.
imagine. Okay. We're excited to be joined by Max Fancher, founder of MVP Good People, a full-service video production agency based in Oakland. Max and his team specialize in thoughtful, high-impact video storytelling for companies that care about doing things right and doing them well. Max, welcome to the Somewhat Creative Show.
Right on. Good to be here.
We're super
Yeah. Thanks for
excited to
joining
have
us.
you on the show. Quick background: I worked with Max on a project. I don't know how we originally got in touch. This was more than 10 years ago, I think, or maybe 10 years ago at this
Yeah.
point, Max.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it was 11 years ago. I just looked at the email you sent
oh,
11 years ago. Yeah.
nice. You
Oh
keep an
man.
archive.
Yeah.
We did a really fun, it was basically an ad for a new startup that did video resumes. And we rented out a house, this really nice house in Sonoma County by a pool. And we did a really funny shoot out there. So, but it was a really great professional experience. Max and his team are like super professional.
That's sweet. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
Nice.
We
that
had a
was
really good
awesome.
time on that shoot.
I
So,
also I have to say, I hate that we're counting in decades now, how long we've known people and worked in
yeah,
this
you could tell
industry.
by the gray.
No doubt.
This is the gray
Yeah.
happening here.
No doubt. No doubt.
So, Max, we've been talking about video, and just where it's going. But before we do that, I was stalking your LinkedIn. I mean, looking at your LinkedIn profile,
Right. Right.
and two things caught my attention that are not video related.
Okay.
One, you were running back for Cal.
Yep.
Wow.
Did not expect that.
Yep.
And two, you taught sailing for years, and then it's like straight into video production after
Wow.
that. So
Renaissance
I want to
man.
know more about your background and
Right on.
how you kind of got to that, because that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it is pretty random, I will say. Let's see. Yeah. So I did play football at Cal. It was a great era when we were there. This is the early 90s, and
Mhm.
Cal had a really good team, and it was bowl games at the end of each season, and it was a great experience. I grew up down in Santa Cruz, and so coming to Berkeley was not super far, and yeah. But when I was growing up in Santa Cruz, I sailed as a kid, and after school or after college, I substitute taught for a while in Oakland Unified School District, and a friend, this was, talk about decades, a friend handed me a little piece of paper that was like a classified ad from the newspaper for a sailing school looking for sailing instructors. And the benefits included access to sailing. And so I went down and got hired as an instructor, and then was there for kind gosh, maybe 11 years I was there and became a part owner of the sailing. It was a sailing school and club. And so the idea is we had 50 boats and 1,000 members, and people could come in and learn how to sail and then have access to the boats to be able to sail on the bay.
Oh, wow.
One of the things that we did that was really cool on those for the schools, we would lead these sailing vacations where we would fly into tropical places, and I would show people how to have a great vacation with their families. So we'd have 12 boats, and I would be sort of the lead boat on the flotilla, we called it. And I started filming those things and basically making home movies, little, like, they were for the people that went on the trip, just to give everyone a little thing at the end to show the experience. And I just got hooked. It was just so awesome. I just loved the whole experience. I had been into photography and done video stuff before that, but the whole process, I just really got bit by the bug. And and then I just did a big, like a hard left turn and went from, I was the sort of heir apparent to taking over the sailing club and school. And I went from that, with the blessing of my partners there, to take this whole new career on. And that was 18, 19 years ago that I started the video production side.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I love hearing people's, unconventional. We did a whole episode called Unconventional Journeys, because it's just creativity. I feel like the creative industry, just people come in from so many different routes, and it's never a straight line. And, that's definitely an interesting direction to take, from sailing to video production. That's a 1 degree of separation I did not imagine in my Kevin Bacon scorecard.
Right, totally. Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons. I think I appreciate that. I think it's a little. So I didn't go to film school, and I didn't go more of a traditional route of sort of being a PA after that.
I was going to ask,
kind of growing my way up. So, I think it's a little slower. I looked at my first sort of 5 years of the business as being my film school, really like on the job training style. And then, so I feel like it's slower to get the skills. But the cool thing is you have a different perspective, and you don't necessarily do things the way that everyone else does them. And I think can be pretty cool. And I've at least got some feedback that, what we've created on our sets, and sort of a style and the approach that we take to doing what we do, is a little bit different, I think, than the traditional route. And people that come and join us on our shoots that have, come from more of a traditional background, have really appreciated what we're doing. And I only know what we do, because it's sort of like, I haven't really been on a lot of other sets.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Well, how is it? Have the people said, like, what the difference is? Is it just a more kind of loose environment than a traditional kind of film set with the people that have been taught traditionally, or what would you say?
Yeah, I think it might be. It's not necessarily loose. I feel like it's this is not true for. I think this is like real traditional style, where I think there was a hierarchy, on film sets, where people they grew up as a PA on a set, and they got treated poorly, and they sort of took on that role and said, that's how it is. We work people really too long hours. We
don't speak unless spoken to.
Totally. And like, I went through that, so it makes sense that you're going to have to go through that too. And I'm going to put you through that. But we don't do that. And so I think people feel appreciated on our sets. There's a lot of gratitude, and a lot of it's a real team atmosphere on our shoots. And so I love that, because that's sort of, I'm literally bringing in my football history into these into our shoots, where we huddle up in the very beginning of a day every day, and we talk about it, and I get to thank everyone for being there, and tell them how grateful I am that I get to do this with them. And then we put our hands in the middle, and we break out of that huddle and go attack the day. And it's it's fun. People love it. We bring music in, and create a vibe. I have a vibe director on the shoots when I can, and we're trying to make it fun. I think awesome. It shows up in the work, and sort of we're creating stuff that's really that people are appreciating, and the clients appreciate it as well. So it's like the whole atmosphere is awesome, and it's it's high fives and hugs at the end of the day, and after a great shoot, and cool. We all get to know each other. We have a really tight family of our crew, and we work together. So it's not a lot of new faces. I mean, it is because of the nature of the business and as we grow in bigger shoots, but it's a consistency too. So it's fun because there's a loyalty that we have to our folks, and we get to have that same consistent crew for most of the shoots we do. So
one of the things I really love about that, you talking about like kind of the more the people aspect of it, is that has really nothing to do with like video production at all, and it's more about how your approach to working with a team, making sure your team is included and has sort of agency for the work you're doing, and it's not just about what the end result is. Even though that's a big part of it, I would imagine we obviously have to do good work, but at the same time, we have to enjoy working with each other and enjoy the process as well. And that's, I think, something that a lot of creative teams sort of forget. They only have their eye on the finish line and not what's our process like. Is this fun to do? Is
Yeah.
this enjoyable? Does the team feel fulfilled essentially
Appreciate
at the
it.
end of every project?
totally. And I feel like that comes with those decades we talked about earlier, that it's sort of you get a better perspective, and sort of like it comes I mean, at this stage in my career professionally, I don't that's the only thing that matters to me. I'm not looking to do it just for the sake of doing it. If it's not awesome and we're not all having a great time, we should do something else, or I shouldn't be in charge of it, at least, because it needs to be we could do anything we want with our lives, and we've chosen to do this thing together on that day, and it's like, let's make this awesome and make it
Yeah, I love that.
do something really special. So
And that was kind of your the name of your company is MVP, Good People. You've added the good people. That's an add-on later. Tell me how you got to that, and what do you hope for that in the future?
yeah, thanks for asking about that, because it's so I started the business. It was Maximize Video Productions, and probably when you reached out, it might have been that. And the younger me, 18 years ago, thought that was a cute idea to name it after my name and have that connection between Max and Maximize. And then
I just got it.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's that moment that I hate right now. So I'm trying to, get away from that. I've been trying to for a while. And so I really, because I don't want it to be Max's video shop. That was never the intention. And I want the team to build this up and have us all be proud of it, and it'd be a thing that we're making together, and not, not about me. And so, we went through a rebrand about 7 years ago, and it just shortened it down to MVP. It was about as bold as I could get at that point to changing the name. So we stripped most of the mention of Maximize from the site and from the different things, and just started calling ourselves MVP. And when we did that, we came up with our core values, and there were a few of them, 4 different core values that were sort of the ones that the branding company helped us with. And the one that really stood out was this idea of just being good people. And I latched onto that, and it just became this thing that I realized, that's really what sets us apart. And that's our special sort of differentiator. And everyone says, yeah, it's our secret sauce. And so we started, calling ourselves. So when we do that huddle and we go to break out of that huddle in the morning, we're saying good people on 3. And it's, I'm looking around at the people that I'm working with, and that's what makes it the good people. But the idea is that we want to be good people in our industry, in our community, and on the planet. And that's, in order to work on the crew and be on this team, you need to self-identify as a good person. That's sort of going to be a test. Like, if you don't, you probably aren't going to fit well here. And then, ultimately, we're looking for clients who are good people as well. And so they don't have to necessarily be saving the planet or saving the world, but they need to appreciate that core value in us and sort of, be attracted to that, I think. And what I've noticed is that since we started calling ourselves good people, it's magnetized the right kinds of people in every way. So whether that's the people working with us, the right clients, it's just, I just love the name. It's just fun. It's just memorable. And it really wraps it all up. And so we want to be really walking the talk and making sure that that means something. And so we, as a organization, we do a feed once a month in Oakland where we have partnered with the City Eats is an organization that is already doing meals in San Francisco. And so we go out to San Francisco and help create a couple of thousand meals. And then we bring over to Oakland 300 or so and we set up our production van becomes this hub where we're serving coffee and hot meals to our unhoused neighbors in Oakland. And we have a ton of volunteers that are coming out and helping us do the distribution. So, and then there's a bunch of other stuff that we're doing as well. But yeah, the idea is that we're doing the slowest name change in the history of mankind, where it's MVP, good people, all one thing. I've been telling people that MVP stands for good people. That's kind of how I have made it go together. But eventually we will become Good People Pictures, and that will make the full leap into the new name.
I wish I could go back in time and somebody could slap me and tell me not to choose the first name that you think of for your business, because you're going to be stuck with it for years and it's going to be super hard to change later on. We all have a little bit of that. Rocky,
I'm guilty. I'm guilty as charged with Studio 22, the first name for my design firm.
How old were you when you started that design firm, Rocky? Were you?
I think I was like 22. How weird
is that, right?
Yeah, and I always joke around that I had to change the name every year.
Right.
But it doesn't age well.
I'll tell you what else doesn't age well is when you have to tell people your email address and you're stuck with clark@clarkadoodle.com.
Oh, no
that doesn't sound super professional most of the time.
That's awesome.
Thank you for Max for doing the work that you do with the feeding the hungry and all the community service. I also think that the direction of making that a core value of being good people is really refreshing in our industry too. I think we give passes to creative people sometimes to be, difficult to work with. It's that I feel like you hear that a lot of directors and all types of creatives that like they're super creative. They're really hard to deal with, and you have to work around them, and you have to make concessions for them, and it's refreshing, I think, to hear. No, let's start with like bringing in good people that we care about and want to work with. And I think that lends to a lot of time better work from people. So
I think a lot of times too, those sort of realizations don't come early on in your career because you're so focused on your output and getting business and, can I make money? Can I afford to keep my staff? Things like that. But as you get older, I think, and as Max alluded to, your priorities sort of change and you realize how important it is to be part of a community, to be able to give back, and just to be a good human. And I wish like more people would tie this into their businesses, and have that sort of social component to it. It was one of the reasons why we switched our names too, was to better reflect how we worked with clients. We were casual. A lot of our business conversations and our meetings, creative meetings, were much, back and forth. Clark remembers a lot of these calls we had. They were just more collaborative and fun, and we had a good time on them, but we got work done at the same time. And I think there is room for both of those things to happen. And more layers, even if you want to do more community service stuff or add more social stuff, like you could do it all in your organization. You just have to have that sort of mindset that you want to do, you want to have a multifaceted approach to your business, not just make money at the end of the day.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think in the beginning, like you said, it is, you'd need to sort of create the business and make sure that the business can sustain itself so that you can then potentially do the other things.
Right.
And then once you've gotten to that point where the business has worked, you have a little more flexibility to say, okay, now how do I make this more meaningful and more fun, like you said? And yeah, I totally agree. And that's, at least that's the stage that I'm in now is, like I don't have any patience for, having it not be just awesome. So let's, you get better at figuring out too, which projects are going to be great and, which people you want to work with. And that comes with time and experience.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And we haven't talked really much about video yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what you actually do.
Right.
So before you got on, Clark and I were talking a lot about like, how video is being used today. Where's video going in the next, 5, 10
Yeah. And
years?
has there ever been a time when it's as prevalent and
Yeah.
necessary as it is now?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a really wild time because it's evolving so fast, and um, I feel like our industry at least has changed a lot since the pandemic, especially, and sort of I've been just thinking about this nonstop lately, just because the industry is down in the Bay Area at least. The industry is definitely down. I mean, I think all through California, and that sort of reaches into the filmmaking community as
Hmm.
well, in
Hmm.
LA and up here also. But yeah, it's the pandemic, I think, was a big shift because people got away, well, technology as well, right? Um, the devices that we have in our pockets right now are so high quality.
Hmm.
And then during the pandemic, because you really couldn't do full productions, we people got used to, and big brands were able to get away with
Hmm.
doing way less produced and less quality, lower quality work. I think it worked enough, especially if the platform is social media where a lot of
Yeah.
it's going.
Yeah.
Then the bar, the barrier, the entry level content that you need to make, you can totally get away with shooting it on your phone or some other little device, and
That's
you don't
true.
need a huge. Yeah, go ahead.
That's different to think about in that way because before when your avenue for video was television or and that was basic. Can't even think of anywhere else you would really see video other than on the TV and on commercial breaks. And yeah, the quality you were up against and running next to kind of forced your hand a little bit to play into that
Hmm.
higher budget, that better production values. And you're right. It's like now people are just used to watching very low quality handheld video. So that is interesting to think about. I haven't thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, so totally, there was TV for sure, the broadcast ads and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But then it's just the homepage video on the website, or the other web ads that were being served in different places. There was a
Hmm.
need for these higher quality things because I think people were spending more time driving traffic to their own website maybe than they are today, where um, I think there's been a shift to where people are staying relevant rather than driving ad traffic to the homepage of their website by just social media posting, and that's a lot more quantity and not quality.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I think that if that goal is to get in front of people and to have people see your brand, people can do that on social media a lot easier
Hmm.
than they can by just driving, traffic back to their website.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I was researching a brand just the other day for an article I was working on, and I can't quite recall what the brand was. I think it was in the food space, and they were selling a product and did not have a website. It was I was trying to find
Mm.
like media contacts or something for them, and it was all just on Instagram. They had no other presence. It was
Right.
only social. So
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. So
Yeah.
we have all these different factors now with video, and it's 2025, and things are changing weekly.
don't
Does it
say it, Rocky.
change
Don't
though?
say the word.
I'm not saying
Don't say
anything.
it.
I'm saying, does a good story, a good video, story, ad, whatever, does the video content, what makes it good now versus, considering that we have all these technologies that could assist in the production of it,
Hmm.
is it still going to be the basics like storytelling, narrative? Um, we're inundated with so much video content.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think you keep hearing people talk about cutting through the noise, and I feel like if I hear that one more time, I'm going to go crazy. But it's really true, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
we're getting served so much video content every day that how do you differentiate and how do you stand out from all of that? And I think, yeah, it's um, absolutely it's the story, and it's people getting creative with figuring out how do you create something that is going to get people's attention really quickly, because we're the when I started, there was a sort of like attention span was maybe a 3 minute. If we could just get to 259 in
Yeah.
that video in terms
Yeah.
of length, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
and now we're just like, okay, what can we do in 7 seconds to make sure we
yeah.
really grab people?
Hmm.
so yeah, it's I'm not going to say the word. I think I know the word you're not trying to say right now. I'm gonna
It's an
avoid.
acronym, I guess, more than
Yeah,
an
yeah,
abbreviation
maybe
more
it's
than
two
it is a
words.
word.
Right, right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, which is a great tool. I think that's a, we can totally talk about that if you want, but I think that's a great tool for people. But yeah, I think right now we're in early days of all of that stuff. And I think we need the people still to be at the center of all of it. Um, and, and a lot of them, hopefully.
So Max, you've seen a lot of changes from going from film to digital video, camera technologies change. Has anything seemed so seismic as it is today in terms of AI video and generative AI that happened in the past 20 years? Or is this like the biggest shift in the industry?
This has the potential for being the biggest. I mean, the things that we've gone through happened, and everybody got on board. And they were, you know, I think when I first started, there were people that were like, wait, we've been doing this forever and cameras are really expensive. And then the 5D Mark II era happened where people got into digital SLR work and having really filmic looking, because before then it was really video compared to this filmic look that people were getting. Like Philip Bloom had his crazy contraption to get a lens onto a camera to be able to get shallow, depth of field. Like that was before the 5D Mark II happened. That didn't exist. And so, at that price point. And so people got into it. And I was coming into this wave of people, 18, 20 years ago where, it was a lot easier to come in and make really good looking stuff. And so that was a huge moment for the industry. And then that was like, HD was a big deal around then. It was like 720p was it was like interlaced. It was still crazy. Yeah. And then we got to HD, and then 4K. It was sort of like, well, is this going to catch on? There were like little moments of like, well, maybe 3D is going to be really big. And that was everyone was like focusing on how, big a deal 3D would be. But yeah, this is a whole different level. And I feel like we're in the .com era right now of AI stuff. And it's sort of like, right now it just feels like you don't know what you should focus on and what you should learn and get good at, aside from just general prompting. But which platform is going to rise up and be the one? Because there's so many, and every week there's a new one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I just invested a bunch of time in this thing. Should I be? I need to
exactly.
And what's the process going to be? What's the
workflow
of working with AI, because it is changing so rapidly, and how do you set up for the future when you can't see where it's going to go in two days?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like right now I've been trying to recalibrate the way to think about it, that I feel like it's going to be a while before the client themselves are going to be able to just use these tools and sort of not need us to do it. And so I think eventually there will be a time where anybody could just, probably talk into a thing and it'll spit out whatever they want. But until then, it feels like you need people that can really learn it, invest the time in getting good at it, to use those tools. And so I'm hoping that that's what a lot of people in my industry are going to do, which is learn the tools and not feel like they're, that if people that I work with can get good at using these tools, and then they can now offer that as another service on top of what we already do, as opposed to it being something sort of adversarial that you're like fighting against AI.
Right.
Hoping we can adopt it, own it, and then, use those tools to help our clients as opposed to being afraid of it.
I know in design, at least within the last month or so, doing the research, that a lot of smaller studios and even some of the larger agencies are actually saying that they're using AI as sort of an augmentation. It's not replacing the traditional, traditional design skills that that particular team has, but they're using it as a tool to either build, create ideas faster, maybe improve workflows that they had before. So it's interesting how it's like an ease into it rather than like wholesale, we're all AI all the time. I don't know if there's an appetite for that yet. And we brought this up earlier too. Is like, well, what feels authentic? Is being an AI agency feel authentic, or does it feel like you're just doing it to be like the first?
Or to slap AI on everything,
Yeah.
which is a
Right.
trend.
Right. Totally. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I've thought that I feel like it hasn't gotten to the point, the tipping point yet of really affecting the masses in terms of how many jobs are going to be lost because of AI. But
Yeah.
I feel like that's coming. And I think there will be a natural, I think AI, people are not going to look fondly on AI there'll be a window of time where it's sort of like, okay, this is this terrible thing, AI,
Mhm.
that's taking all these jobs away from all these people. And during that time, maybe there's like a people wanting to go back to the made by real people idea, and I was imagining a certification that would be like made by, it's like certified organic, but for
Yeah.
made by
Yeah.
real. But the reality is, like you said, with easing into it, I mean, we're using it all the time for different things. So, as much as I'd love to say we're not, part of the AI thing, we use ChatGPT and a bunch of other things to just help with the creative process. And so it's already kind of got its tentacles in there. It's
Yeah.
AI's pervasive already. So we can't say that it's 100% real. But I am curious to see if there will be a backlash against it once people start really getting affected by
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, because there's always been these backlashes to new technology, right? The horse industry hated the automobile, and
Yeah.
it did ruin the industry. I mean, there's still people that ride horses, but it's not the industry it once was. And I think that's I guess the big danger is like, is there a time when there's any are there any jobs left in some of these industries like video and design, and are there going to be logo designers in 10 years when it's
Mhm.
you can just dream up whatever with AI? And the same with video. It's getting, the Google announcements over the past couple days have been pretty shocking to me in terms of the
Yeah.
quality that it's getting to, and incorporating audio generated right inside the same system. So
Right.
I guess that's the fear, is like, is it a shrinking of the industry? Is it taking away 50% of the jobs? Is it taking away 9% of the jobs, and you're just left, like, is it production for a video in 10 years going to be a person sitting at a computer and that's it? There's
Right.
no light tech, there's no anybody. I mean, it still feels like that one person is never going to go away. Sadly, it's reducing the amount of positions and the entry level, for people to get into these industries. Like you said, it's like the assistants and lower level jobs will probably be eaten up first by AI. And
Mhm.
um, is that unavoidable? Is it something to contend with? Is it something that some people are going to say, no, we're going to do it the traditional way as long as we can, and we're going to sell it that way? I think it's something we were talking about, Rocky and I, before you came on, was, there's a marketing opportunity for those companies, right? As AI takes over more and more, for people to come along and say, like, we are the authentic human produced creative agency for video or for design, or for, it's all done by a human hand, and that's how we market ourselves. And if you want that to be part of your marketing as well, come work with us.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
maybe that's the route it takes. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And I think, it also I've been feeling like it's the real stories, talking with real people, for that company that you're talking about. It's the interview with them speaking about their thing or about what they're up to or their values. It's those testimonials of customers actually talking about them. It's the documentary style. That might be the last thing to fall,
Right.
where if I'm making a brand anthem video about a company, or making something that's just, strictly like, we could do a text to video kind of approach. That's something that you can do with AI, where hearing from the people that work there, hearing from the customers that love what they do, like, that's something that I don't know how you AI that and have it be real.
I mean, it wouldn't be real, but I could tell you how you AI it. You get 30 seconds of them talking, you get a script, you get a photo, somebody takes a photo of them on your phone and sends it to you.
Yeah.
You put all
Totally.
that into AI, and it produces the whole documentary scene with them talking, and it looks like them, and it's their
Yeah.
words, it's their voice, but it's all AI produced.
Yeah, no, I 100%. Like there's a way to do it. And then there's sort of like if the message you're talking about is your
Yeah.
authenticity and
Yeah.
there's a way that like you could benefit sell the fact that even the thing you're looking at right now is authentic. And this is, there's going to be that potentially where people are drawing attention to the fact that what you're looking at was not made by AI. And these are my real feelings. And this is really who we are and what we're all about.
Yeah.
I remember when deep fakes sort of were like a worry, like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. It was like, that's a deep fake. And everyone's like, what does that mean? Like, but now it's like, looking at like what Google just announced earlier in the week, like you could do a whole film and it's all deep fake, like an entire full length feature film with people that are not really people. So are we going to get into a point in entertainment or even corporate video production where everyone's just represented by an avatar? It's not really them, but it's a facsimile of them that's designed and built through AI. We've seen it with other like actors that have already passed away, but they've been incorporated into film.
Yeah.
Right. So
Singing in rain.
Well, it feels like it may go back to what we're talking about earlier. Like, what are the viewers going to do with that? And is that going to be seen as something cool and like, wow, this is awesome? Or are they going to be like, oh, this is gross, I don't want to see that? And like, I think the audience is going to really be a big factor in, is that going to take off or not? Is that something that's really acceptable by a lot of people? Or is it just going to be like, okay, this is actually insulting? Because
at the end of the day, I think that for the audience, it's the question: are you not entertained?
Right. Totally.
Right.
Totally.
But you still, I mean, we were talking about this before too, though. I still think, there's opportunities in the future when you can do it with AI, right? You can produce all this stuff. I think it's the messaging around that, like we were just talking about. It's because you have, you have it in CGI. We've had it over the past 20 years with there's Avatar, which is on a blue screen somewhere, and people, it looks great, but it doesn't, the marketing around it and everything, comparing that to like a Mission Impossible, like same kind of price points and everything, same target demographics and everything, but people will go see Mission Impossible because Tom Cruise is doing some crazy stunt, and that's part of the marketing for the movie. And it's not they could easily have a CGI Tom Cruise jumping off of that motorcycle onto that train or whatever, but they do it for real so that they can tell people, look, we did this for real.
Yeah. And it works.
It feels like that's where this is going to go, is like, yes, AI can do this, but we did it for real. Right. If you want to market yourself as the place that did it for real, like, come to us. And I don't know if
that's even a pre-AI thing though, because it's CG. People want, like, is this a real practical effect or is it CG? There's still an appreciation for practical effects. It's like, wow, they actually went through some crazy engineering to develop that one scene and they pulled it off practically. I don't know, maybe it's because I like film, but that's cool to me. Is it cool to everybody, or most people maybe don't care? I don't know. I'm a weirdo.
No, I don't think that's weird at all. I totally, I love this conversation because I think that is going to be the big question. What's the audience going to want out of this thing? And I think like we saw that when, what was the Lord of the Rings, or what was shot in 48 frames per second, where it was shot in video and it was like everyone freaked out, like, oh my God, this looks terrible. It looks like video.
Oh yeah.
Was it the prequels to Lord of the Rings? Was it
I think so. Yeah.
I think it was the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, that's right.
That switched. Yeah, and they they looked a little
soap opera.
Yeah. And so, and the movie Sinners, I don't know if you've seen that yet. Sinners, that was shot on film, and it's film and it's grainy and kind of, you have to really like film. If you compare that to shooting what people are shooting digitally now, it's the beauty is that it's not perfect and it looks kind of grainy and kind of messed up, and that's what, and it's a sort of a period piece, so it really makes sense for that movie. But yeah, I feel like I keep coming back to just, is the audience, what are they going to want, and are they going to be okay with it not being a real stunt, and it's all just a fake person even. It feels like people want the real deal.
I think the audience matters in that question too. because you have like the real like the
Or are you reaching?
cinephiles like that want like the purists. They love the film. They love the film grain. They love how it was shot. Pure cinematography. But then there's people that don't care. They just want popcorn flicks, right? And so,
Well, I don't think it's one or the other either, though, Rocky. I think
no, it's not.
I'll go
But then
see a
like they,
Tarantino movie with the film and
for
like
sure,
and
yeah,
go to a theater that's showing the actual 48 millimeter or whatever,
yeah,
and I don't know if I have the right numbers there, but I think I'll also go see the crazy CGI Marvel movie or whatever, and
yeah.
and then I'll go see the Sinners movie and
Well, in
love the
IMAX,
grain and
people love
everything.
IMAX. So,
Yeah.
that's
So
film.
maybe that's the answer is like people will love both. People will go see both and respond to both. So there's still going to be opportunities for both. I don't know.
Yeah,
Hopefully, maybe that's the
totally.
bright side.
Yeah, which is true. And it's just sort of like, how will the industry, the filmmaking industry, maintain its size and the number of people working in it? And, with these AI things as well happening, in parallel, is that possible that both things can exist? And it doesn't necessarily mean AI doesn't mean the end of all these jobs and these careers. I hope so.
Yeah, one of the things
Cross
that
my
we
fingers.
comes up almost every episode is what there's obviously a lot of people, a lot of young people right now that are either in school or thinking about going to school, and they have these career ideas. There's obviously people that love film, they love graphic design, they love photography, and these I feel like are the industries that are probably most are closest to the inflection point that I'm seeing right now. What kind of advice do you give people like that are interested in getting into these fields now? If they were to ask you, "Hey, I want to go to film school," like, what do you think? Is this, what do I need to learn? Where are my blind spots? What's it going to look like in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, totally. Well, I have a 17-year-old daughter, so she's not interested in this industry necessarily, but she's heading out there to go to college after next year. And yeah, that's a big question I have just for everyone. Like, what is safe to get into right now, and where should you go? It's really, not just our industry, but I um I I do feel like whatever the person's doing, there should be a piece of it dedicated to having the AI be part of it, and that you're coming in with eyes open about, okay, this particular field that I'm thinking about getting into, whether it's in, a specific role in filmmaking or video production,
Mm-hmm.
looking at that, and having AI be part of that conversation and part of that. So if it's a school you're going to that's for that particular trade, then making sure they have some plan for AI built into that training, because I think it would be foolish to just jump into this industry thinking you could keep going as is.
Yeah, and not fight against that current.
Yeah.
It reminds me of recently I saw someone within I don't remember who it was exactly, but they were within the education field, and they were saying sort of the same thing. Like we need to not teach the same way we've been teaching and
Yeah.
be so resistant to these new tools. And like they gave an example of, students are going and writing their papers on ChatGPT, and the whole paper is written for them, and they turn that in, and the effort has been to identify that and to prevent that from happening so that students can still write their papers. And I've heard from students in college that say that if they're like they feel like they're actually not getting an education, they're not learning, because they're just having ChatGPT write their papers, and it's just what they do now, and all their friends are doing. Like it's just so ingrained now. It's becoming more ingrained. The interesting thing they said was, we need to embrace that and tell students, okay, go home, write this paper on ChatGPT, come back, we'll analyze it, and we'll make it better. Like, let's bring it into the classroom instead of fighting so much against it. And I think that's great advice for anybody learning these new technologies. Don't fight against it. Figure out how to incorporate it and make it better, and make your process fit with that system, and where you can deviate and where the opportunities are to, learn the skills to, like we were talking about, like you kind of have to get some of those jobs. Maybe this is something you have to do for a while until you get to a point where then you can go, you know what, I want to try doing it in film. I want to try doing it outside of AI. And I've developed the skills to do both. And I think that is kind of the route people are going to have to take.
Totally. I agree. I think rather than trying to hide from AI, just embracing it, bringing it into whatever you're interested in and making sure that you, because there's an opportunity here too, right? It's so early days of all this stuff that, if I was younger, I'd want to dive harder into AI right now because it feels like there are amazing tools and not enough people that know how to use them right now. So,
well, and the thing that we keep going back to too is there ever going to be a time when you don't need the language to prompt engineer correctly for these kind of things? When we're talking about video and getting AI to produce what you want it to produce, is there going to be a time when you don't need to know your lighting cues and your lens lengths and all the language of creating visuals? Like you can't just go in and say, I want a cool video of a cat jumping from a skateboard. Like, okay, what focal length, what angle are you wanting this? Do you want it to swivel around? Like, there's a lot of different components to it. And, so is there always going to be that part of the education? And is there still going to be somebody that needs to know the background of those things?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if it's ever going to be able to do it for you, but
Neuralink
it gives you 70 different options and you just pick one. But
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope there's still somebody at the center of it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think at least for the short term, there has to be. So that's the good news is like, those people, I think that shift of those people that have those skills, learning AI and getting involved in that process, I think that's, I'm trying to do that myself. And so I'm hoping that there's a lot more people like me that are trying to learn those things and have fuse the two things together rather than trying to hide from the AI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Max, I feel like we could sit here for 3 days straight and have this conversation.
Totally.
This is really, really interesting, important, topical. I love it. We typically end each show with a question that Clark has, and
yes, I enjoy a good, because it's not on anymore, so I got to bring it back somehow. But Inside the Actor Studio, my favorite interview program of all time, and we don't have that anymore. So I like to bring in one of the Inside the Actor's final question, and this one I would love. I think this is a great one. We talked a little bit about your early life and yachting and sailing and everything. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally nowadays? What gets your creative juices flowing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like
where do you draw inspiration? Where do you is it travel? Is it getting back out on the water? Do you still sail?
I wish I sailed. That got put on hold when I had kids, and it never picked back up again. So
tell me about it.
Yeah. You've got a little one?
Oh, I got two. I got a 6 and a 3.
Oh,
so
wow.
I don't have hobbies. They're my hobbies.
Totally. I ended up having a 17-year-old and I now have a 9-year-old. Well, we have a 17-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so that split means that we have stayed. The hobbies haven't come back yet completely. So,
yeah.
So sailing hopefully one day.
Let me ask you this. Do your children do you gain a little, creativity from them seeing things through their eyes?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, and because they're both so different and such different ages, it's cool because there's a different kind of creativity needed for each one of them.
Yeah.
There's a teenager who's got her things that, trying to make her laugh and, be creative around her is one thing. And then the 9-year-old's a totally different approach.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love seeing the world through both of their eyes, both of those ages. And I definitely draw inspiration from the family. That's for sure. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us on the show, Max.
That was a very good answer. I think
loved
that's
It's perfect.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks so much. Really appreciate you bringing me on. It's nice to talk with you both.
Absolutely, Max. Thanks for joining the show. It's really, really good.
Anytime.